Open session. Sarah, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So in closed session, action to report out, the board voted 5-0 in favor of appointing Raymond Marr to the Director of Technology position. The district hopes to have Mr. Marr on board by 1st of July 2014. And I will add, just for the public, when we adopted the agenda an hour ago, we moved the consent item G to the end of action items and moved discussion item A to the above the action items. So now is the time for public comment period. Persons may speak on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Speakers are requested to fill out a speaker card and to state their name and address before addressing the board. Individual speakers are asked to limit their comments for an item to no more than 3 minutes in order to allow everyone who wishes to speak the opportunity to do so. Groups are asked to limit their comments to a total of 10 minutes. The board shall limit the total time of public comment to 15 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. If additional time is needed, public comment will continue after discussion items. Charles Hannon?
Well, I just came back from Maui to be able to make it to this meeting, so it's good to be back. This is a challenging meeting for teachers to attend. I know you have a lot of business in June, and I know this is necessary. I do appreciate all of you being here as well, because I know your kids are back. It came to my attention, and I'm not sure about this, that in the subs program that we have, there may not be a teacher representative, and I think that it's really important to have a teacher perspective, especially when it's a program that's taught in the classroom. I'm hoping tonight that I'll learn that there is a teacher representative. If not, I really do encourage us to find out if that's possible. Beyond that, I want to say that I'm still very much encouraging the district to move forward with making sure classrooms have the air conditioning. I know that's something that you're working on right now, and I really do appreciate that. I think that it's possible that in the fall we'll get a number of very warm days, so I'm really pleased to hear that there is some progress in that direction. Other than that, I don't know if I've said it enough, but I do always really appreciate the commitment, the time and effort that all of you put into representing the school district. I know at times there's controversial issues, and I may make some pretty strong statements, but I think that when it comes down to it, we all know we're here for the reason of doing our best for kids. And I think that's central to all of us. And I think it's very positive when we do have constructive conversations about things. We may not all agree, but we all know that we're here for the same purpose. And I do very much appreciate that. So thank you. I think we do remarkable things for children. And I think we do remarkable things for our community, and our kids go off into the world, and we have a big influence on the world. So I appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
I don't have any other speaker cards. So moving on to the consent calendar. Item listed under consent calendar considered to be routine or acted upon by the Board of Trustees in one motion. There is no discussion of these items before the board vote unless a member of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed and removed from the consent calendar. It is understood that the administration recommends approval on all consent items. Each item on the consent calendar approved by the board shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended.
I would like to request to pull 2 items from the consent calendar, item number F and also item number R.
F being the BaySci partnership agreement, and R being the Williams complaint report. Shall I make a motion? I move that we adopt the consent calendar except for items F and items R. And G, I'm sorry. G was pulled previously, and so items, except for those three items, F, G, and R.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
So vote is 3-1 with Moran opposing. So we'll put item F and item R after item G of consent.
I'm sorry, Chris, where is item G?
Item G consent is after H of action.
Okay.
Okay, so next item on our amended agenda is discussion item A, Child Safety Awareness Program 2013-14 progress report. Ms. Marshall.
Good evening. We're here to provide an annual update and report of the Child Safety Awareness Program that was approved by the board in January of 2013. It was approved in January 2013 through a memorandum of understanding and a partnership agreement with Moraga School District, Lafayette School District, and the Child Abuse Prevention Council. It was in response to new requirements for addressing sexual harassment, not only in the education code, but in our policies, which is a mandated policy, to provide instruction and appropriate education to students and to families. So as soon as I can get the PowerPoint working, we have Carol Carrillo here, who is the Executive Director of the Child Abuse Prevention Council, who will share with you updates from this year. It's coming? Okay, good. I do want to let you know that one of the conditions of the MOU was to establish a steering committee with representatives from each district who would monitor, evaluate, and make recommendations on the program. That steering committee is comprised of 14 members, equal representation from each school district. So from each school district, there is a district level administrator. It is the director or assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction. There is an administrator, a site administrator, which is either a principal or in our case, it's our associate principal at the middle school OIS. There is a certificated staff member, which is comprised collectively of a health educator from Lafayette, and an elementary teacher from Moraga, and for us, it's our certificated staff is an adult and a school psychologist representing all schools, and then we have a parent rep from each district. We have met 4 times this year, and through that process, we have analyzed surveys, we have discussed the program per se, the curriculum, made recommendations for modification. And so Carol will be presenting an overall view tonight, as well as those recommendations from the steering committee. So Carol, I'd like to have you come up, and I'm going to assist with operating the PowerPoint while she speaks with you.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me back. We've done a lot of work this last year.
Wait a minute, I've got to understand why it's not showing up.
Oh.
Something so basic.
Oh.
I apologize. Okay.
Ready? Is it?
There it
Yay.
is.
Okay, good. So again, thank you for having me tonight. We've done a lot of work since the last time I was here, which was about a year ago, when we came together to talk about developing a child safety program in this community to address some of the issues that we're finding that were happening in our community. The Child Abuse Prevention Council worked with the La Orinda community over the past year to develop a safety program for students, parents, and the community. The Child Abuse Prevention Council is the lead agency in Contra Costa, providing programs and services throughout the county on child abuse prevention.
You should stop just for a moment,
Yeah, I
because I
know.
don't want to be
Yeah.
distracted.
So view the slideshow.
Under view slideshow.
Very bottom.
There you go. Here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Nervous up there.
Great, so, okay, so I am the executive director. I have a master's degree in social work. I have worked in the field of child welfare and advocacy programs for over 28 years. And I have a master's degree in social work. The staff person that has been assigned to the Speak Up Be Safe program, her name is Carol Sheenan. She is a health educator with over 10 years of experience working exclusively with children and youth around health issues in the classroom, and she also holds a master's degree. So the problem, why are we here? Why did we come together a year ago to talk about child safety in our community? Well, the headlines tell that story. Each day in Contra Costa County, children are suffering needlessly from abuse and neglect, often at the hands of the very people they know and trust, the people who should be protecting them. Almost daily, we see in the local newspaper stories about child abuse by someone the child knows and trusts. Teachers, child care providers, dance instructors, coaches, and even family friends. We all know now, based on these headlines, that child abuse happens in every community, and it crosses all social, economic, racial, and racial barriers. So it does happen in all communities. Last year in Contra Costa County, there were over 10,000 reports of suspected child abuse and neglect. There were approximately 4 substantiated cases of child abuse and neglect each day in Contra Costa County. And out of those reports, 94% of the child abuse cases, the child knew the abuser. So it's a pretty high number. Sometimes we think about this issue and we think of stranger danger, when in fact that is not really the case. Most of the time the child knows who their abuser is and has a relationship with that person. The other issue that we were wanting to address is bullying. Bullying is widespread in elementary and middle schools, but bullied kids and witnesses to these instances rarely report their consequences. We know that bullying is a problem, and I have to say that in La Orinda, the school districts are doing a great job addressing this issue. And when we come in, we try to reinforce and work with the curriculum that's already been developed in the district to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're enhancing what's already being done around this issue. Cyberbullying and digital abuse. Of the 13% of second and third graders who reported that they use the internet to talk with people that they don't know, and I can tell you that if you talk to any law enforcement agency in this county, even the law enforcement agencies in La Orinda, they will tell you that this is a huge issue on our elementary, middle, and high school campuses. So it is an area that we are working on to address in our program. Sexual harassment, as Kathy mentioned earlier, sexual harassment is an issue that the schools are dealing with. The negative effects for victims of sexual harassment include trouble sleeping, not wanting to go to school, changing the way they go to and from school. It also takes a toll on their education by increasing their rates of absenteeism and decreasing their productivity while at school. Our steering committee helped us really recognize that this was an issue they wanted to make sure that we covered when we were developing a program, because they were finding that children didn't know what this meant, that some of the sexual harassment issues that were happening on the school grounds, children didn't know what that was. They thought it was funny, or that they were just playing games, and that they didn't really realize the seriousness of their actions. So we felt that was really important to include in our program development. So what was our solution? What's our solution to all of these issues? As Kathy mentioned, we did develop, along with the 3 school districts, a safety committee to really look at the issues of what we wanted to do, what was the best practice, what would really work in the La Orinda community. So the Child Safety Steering Committee had representatives of all 3 districts and the Child Abuse Prevention Council. We looked at programs and we decided on the Speak Up, Be Safe program. The program is based on best practice. It was researched and vetted by Arizona State University. It was also developed by Child Help USA in partnership with the Monique Bear Foundation. This is not a clinical program and it's not a counseling program. It is an education program. So what have been the impact and the benefits of this program that we have found over the last year? Benefits to the children is that it increases communication. Parent and caregiver letters describing what the students learned are sent home after each session. And the students are encouraged to review this information with the adults in their lives. There are also other take-home materials that students and their parents and caregivers complete together. It educates and empowers the community. The lessons provided children with more important information regarding what's appropriate and what's not. It also gives them strategies to stay safe while reinforcing the concept that adults have the primary responsibility for keeping them safe. And it reduces the long-term consequences of child abuse. When abused children grow up, they are at greater risk of drug and alcohol abuse, risky sexual behavior, unhealthy relationships, and mental health problems. This type of program can lead to earlier disclosure of abuse, which both prevents further abuse from occurring and allows the child to play an important role in keeping themselves safe. What have we found the benefits to the school and the community to be? It engages the teachers. The teachers stay in the classroom during the children's sessions so that they can learn concepts and the language of the program. This will help if they need to answer any follow-up questions the children may have, or if children come up with questions as the teachers provide the reinforcement learning sessions once we are out of the classroom. Since the instructor only has 2 sessions with the student, the teacher reinforcement activities are very important and will help reinforce the important information the children have learned. Ideally, the instructor will do the first session, and then the next week the teacher will do the reinforcement activity. The following week, our instructor will do the second lesson, and the teacher will follow up with the second reinforcement activity. And I do want to reinforce that while we are in the classroom, the teacher or a credentialed staff person is in the classroom the whole entire time of the lesson being performed. Let's talk a little bit about the curriculum what it all entails. The foundation of the curriculum is the 5 Speak Up, Be Safety rules. They are re-emphasized each year, and each grade's curriculum builds upon the lessons from the previous year in an appropriate manner. This program builds a skill set for students to use throughout their lives. It teaches them about safe touch, and it teaches them about private body parts that are covered by their bathing suit. There's a PowerPoint presentation that goes along with each session, and here are some examples of the slides that are shown. There are also lots of games, activities, role plays, and group discussions around these safety issues to keep kids engaged. Each student is given a number of items to take home to help reinforce the lesson content, as well as the parent letters. I believe all of you got a packet of information with all of the take-home items, as well as some sample parent letters. I want to really reinforce that after each lesson, a parent letter goes home with that child so the parent knows exactly what we taught that day. And what's really important about that is this lesson is really about empowering not only the children but the parents. So parents have the tools and resources to talk to their children about this very important topic. So it's really important that those parent letters go out after each lesson. Each student gets a safety card with the 5 safety rules on one side, and the back side differs depending on the child's grade. For the first third graders, the backside lists what is the quality of a safe adult. This program, again, really emphasizes with children, pick who your safe adult is. They get 2 bookmarks that they get to go to anybody in their life that they know they can trust, that will help keep them safe, that will believe them, and that will listen to them, and that will help whatever is happening in their life stop from happening. So that's why we reinforce over and over again with the kids to identify their safety adult and to talk to that safety adult over and over again. For 5th and 6th graders, the backside list, the resist strategies, these are choices that they can make if they're faced with any unsafe situation. Run, escape, scream, ignore, stay away, and again, tell that safe adult. So what of our goals and accomplishments that we feel we want to share with you tonight? During the 2013-14 school year, we taught and served over 3,500 students in grades 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 6th in Moraga, Lafayette, and Orinda. We were in 148 classrooms with 2 lessons each, and out of that group, only 39 children opted out of the program. In Orinda, we served 1,111 students in 53 classrooms, and only 6 children opted out of the program. In addition to the lessons, we provided staff and parent presentations at each district before we went in and talked to the students, so the parents were on board with what we were teaching, what the program curriculum was about, and what they can do to help reinforce this program and how important they are in their children's lives around safety. What we plan to do next year is continue the program in the La Orinda schools and work right now. I'm working with Mount Diablo and possibly Walnut Creek in expanding the program into some other school districts. We polled the 5th and 6th graders, and we asked them to tell us how they feel about the program. And we really feel this is important for you all to hear what the students are saying to us. I learned it's my body, and I have options if I feel uncomfortable. I learned what to do when being hurt on the inside or the outside. This was really hard to talk about, but this is really good to know about and to know what to do. I've learned to listen to that it doesn't feel right feeling. I've learned that if one adult doesn't listen, to keep telling another adult until they listen. These are powerful statements from our children. We also polled the parents, we polled the teachers. That's what I wanted to talk about first. We, out of 153 teachers that responded to our poll, 80 teachers, out of 103 teachers, 80 responded, to the poll. And keeping in mind that this was our pilot year, the responses to the teacher and staff feedback were gathered after the lessons were completed. The program was modified and improved as the school year progressed, and improvements will also be incorporated over the summer. Out of the 80 completed, 85% of those were Orinda teachers, and they felt the lessons were age appropriate and child friendly. They felt students developed skills to help keep themselves safe, and they would recommend to the district that the district continue the Speak Up, Be Safe program. Now we can get to the parent survey. We sent out parent surveys to the children that participated in the program in Lafayette and Orinda. We were too late with the survey to include Moraga parents, but we will be doing that in early fall. Out of the parents that received the survey, and I believe it was, help me Kathy, it was all of the grades, that 266 parents completed the survey. So out of that survey, parents felt that the children developed a skill set to help keep them safe, that the parents and caregivers did receive the take-home materials, and of those that got the take-home materials, they agreed that they were useful when talking with their children about safety and abuse prevention strategies. So really, really important feedback from the parents as well. Some other additional feedback that we received from parents in La Orinda. My husband and I are very pleased that this program was presented to our son. It reinforces what we've been working on at home. Very well done. Thank you for providing this very valuable service. We have the certificate and the cards on our family bulletin board. These are topics that we as parents are fiercely worried about, yet they are difficult to broach with our kids for a variety of reasons. This program provided a good entry into the conversations, which we will keep ongoing. Again, really important feedback for us because the communication piece of this program is so important. Again, this was our pilot year, and we did take very seriously the feedback that we received, not just from our steering committee, but from the community, from the parents, from the teachers that participated in this program. And we did make some improvements. We added some more small group activities, games, and role plays into the lessons. We helped students better understand that while sometimes this is hard to discuss, it's important safety information and that knowledge is power. We also modified the portions of the curriculum language without compromising the take-home message. And we're always open and constant looking at how we can really tweak this program to do the best that we can to keep our kids safe. In addition to improving, we want to improve our communication with parents and caregivers about this program. The steering committee met just recently, I think last month, and what we decided to do was to improve our communication and increase the awareness of this program by adding additional information flyers at the back-to-school nights. Each district will provide information about our parent nights. The district will send communication to parents and caregivers, which will include the presentation date and the content. We will also provide a link to the Child Abuse Prevention Council website where parents can learn more specifics about the lessons for each grade, major points about each lesson, what's covered, major definitions of some of the terms we use, and more. Communication is the key here again. What we additionally want to improve is that our parents are receiving the take-home information. We will distribute the materials both electronically and give the students the information after each lesson, and we will also work with the reinforcement activities with the teachers, so if there's any feedback or modification around that, we will be there and willing to make those changes and enhance that piece of the program. So our community goals for this program is to, one, build community awareness of the issue of child abuse prevention, strengthen the relationship between the community and the Child Abuse Prevention Council, provide students, parents, caregivers, schools, and the community with the tools and resources needed to help empower our children and keep them safe. Children will develop a skill set that incorporates the 5 safety rules and help keep them safe throughout their lives, middle school, high school, college, and even in the workplace. This program is very transparent. It gives parents, caregivers, and schools, students that are all engaged in the program the tools and the resources to keep themselves safe. We appreciate the opportunity to have been able to work with the Orinda School District this last year. We're very excited to keep building upon this program. The ideal best practice for this program is that each year our students will build their skill set. They get to know the program, they get to know the language that's being used, they get to know the teacher, they call her the safety teacher, they will become more and more familiar with the curriculum, the teacher, and the safety issues. It will build upon. Ideally, this program is really designed to work with 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th graders. We did not choose to do that this year because we were piloting the program. But if you can just imagine that a child that's hearing this message for the first 7 years of their elementary and part of their middle school life, they are going to incorporate those safety strategies and tools in their life that will take them into adulthood and keep them safe. So thank you very much for your time, a lot of information.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to add something. I want to go back to one of our parent surveys. You'll see here that it said here in Orinda, 68% of the parents or caregivers received the take-home materials. That was a disappointing statistic for the steering committee because we thought we made an effort to make sure every parent had the information they needed to be able to have the conversation with their students. So one of the recommendations that came forward is when we are sending home information electronically, in addition to hard copy, we've also talked about sending it home, giving it to the teacher prior to the lessons. So as soon as the students come home, the parents already have information in hand and are ready to address that conversation when you ask, what did you do today in school? And so that was really important to the steering committee to make sure that there were no surprises.
So I have some questions. Thank you, both of you. And I know this is on for discussion, but this is the first time for anyone in the audience who isn't aware, this is the first time the board has had a chance to hear about this program again after it was first approved over a year ago. I have some questions, just several just general questions about how this is operating. Let's see, regarding the steering committee, so there's 3 districts that are participating, us, Lafayette, and Moraga. And since we as board members have to watch out for our district, our kids, and our schools in our district, I'm not clear how, if there's, how is there any autonomy for Orinda among decisions made in the steering committee in general, and also the fact that these lessons are being given in the classroom. Someone mentioned certificated teachers. However, our steering committee is made up of, the people that it's made up of includes, there is a certificated person, the psychologist, but our psychologists in Orinda aren't actually part of the Teachers Association. So I don't feel like there's any direct input from the Teachers Association into what's, for them to speak up about how it's going for their teachers in the classroom. So I'm wondering about that, and if there's classroom teachers in the other 2, in Lafayette or in Moraga, as part of the steering committee. And so if somebody could speak about that, thank you.
As far as the autonomy goes, I can say that participating actively on the steering committee, that there are situations that we discuss that would better address Orinda students, approaches to lessons, and that has happened with the other 2 districts because we all, although we're all implementing the same program, we have brought to the table our recommendations. This might work better in Orinda, and the instructor has been very accommodating to address that.
I think also the teacher reinforcement activities, we do get feedback directly from the teacher in the classroom because that teacher is in the classroom when we're there. And so whatever feedback we can gather from the teacher about maybe the reinforcement activities that we can tweak and make more, the lack of whatever, appropriate for that particular classroom and those students, then that's what we do.
Okay, so is there a classroom teacher on the steering committee?
Yes.
From what, Lafayette or Moraga?
From Lafayette, yes.
From Lafayette.
And now Moraga, the health educator, Moraga is an elementary teacher, and the Lafayette teacher just became certificated, but she was the health educator. And that's who their district selected. I wasn't aware that certificated teachers outside of the classroom couldn't be part of the union or weren't a part of it. But it was really identifying a certificated teacher who wanted to commit, who stepped up to commit, and who had the time and also the broader perspective to provide that input. But certainly it doesn't exclude another teacher, a classroom teacher from participating. We just wanted to have a balance of at the committee level without it getting too large.
Mhm. Sure, but I feel like it would be important to include a classroom teacher for our district, since we don't have that on there already. Also, I'm curious, what's the input from board members in the other districts? Do they have a board member on the steering committee in Lafayette or Moraga? No. Okay. And do they get report backs?
They will, you're our first presentation, but yes, they
Okay.
do.
Okay, so you're gonna do the same?
I'm gonna do the same show, take it on the road.
Okay. Well, I also have some questions about, I guess, the curriculum and, I remember when we first approved this, it was going to be first, third, fifth, and seventh grade. And I was told you didn't find a curriculum that included seventh grade, so that's why we have this one. But, you know, we've had some parent concern from this program. I'm sure you're aware. And so, you know, I do have to kind of question how we came up with this curriculum and if this is, I mean, of course, we all want child abuse to not exist and not be in our schools, and we have a responsibility to present information to our kids so that they know about sexual harassment. That's very clear, but the question is, how are we doing that, and is this the best way to do it, or what are other districts doing? The fact that both Moraga and Lafayette have had very serious lawsuits puts them in a slightly different place, honestly, than we are at. And I, completely understand your presentation and what you're trying to do, and it's very commendable. But I also have to think of, is this right for our kids in our district? And I do wonder, is the classroom model better than grade-wide assembly, for example? I know Kaiser does an excellent job of those assemblies that we have at middle school, Nightmare on Puberty Street, that they present to the middle school. And I wonder if something like that, in fact, you could even, I'm not saying we can't have you do it, but I'm wondering why doesn't Carol Sheenan present to all the first graders out of school in the NPR in a way that is more of an assembly format where the information is still being presented, but you're not exposing kids to asking questions that are awkward and maybe get them into, troubling situations, or speaking up in an awkward way about their, private worries that maybe they don't want other kids to hear, or other families, that kind of thing. So that's a question I have. And then also, what's the review of the curriculum? I would prefer to see, I did look at the binder. I don't know if my fellow board members had a chance to look at the binder of the curriculum, but I would prefer to see what curriculum changes you're planning to make before we present the curriculum again in the fall, since curriculum is something that board members are supposed to be in charge of.
That's easy.
So could you say something about what you anticipate the process for modifying curriculum would be?
Well, can I address your first question?
Sure.
Okay, your first question around having an assembly process is not the best practice model for these topics that we're trying to present to students. One-time assemblies aren't going to give kids the opportunity to hear the message over and over again. This is a curriculum that does build upon itself each year. So there's more information, more reinforcement that the student gets each year that you wouldn't get in an assembly. And it's just not around child abuse and some of these other issues, it's just not the best practice model. It's not the state-of-the-art model for providing child abuse prevention services to students. So that's why we chose this is a more comprehensive approach than a student assembly one time a year that is not going to really reinforce and help reinforce what the children are learning in the classroom. Some of the tweaking of the curriculum that we will do, we will more than happy to give that to the school board prior to, and I'm not sure when we're scheduled in Orinda, but we're working on that this summer, and we will certainly make that available to the school board to see before we come into the classroom.
And
Okay,
some
I
of
would
those,
appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
some of those recommendations from our steering committee have actually been brought back to those that have developed the curriculum. And recommendations I can just give you broadly are some of the language that may be confusing or perceived differently, so that we can make sure that everything is at an age-appropriate level. And the company has been very open to the suggestions.
Okay, well, in terms of the curriculum, like on the back, the last page of this summary of survey results, and by the way, I would really appreciate being able to see all of the survey results instead of just a summary and all of the comments. I mean,
Well, for Orinda, you are seeing all of the comments. Did we?
Well-
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all the comments for Orinda. We made sure that every single comment was listed for your review.
okay. Well, it
And I'll
does have
probably do
on
the same for Lafayette, and I'll probably do the same for Orinda.
It has on the side,
Moraga.
it looks like a summary because it lists on the side, 3 that say this, 3 that say that, or that kind of thing. So you aren't actually getting it verbatim.
That's
Because that's
because
what
they said along those same lines, that was the comment.
Yeah, all right, good. I would just prefer having all the comments. I just
Okay.
need to state that. The other thing I wanted to say was on the last page where it says improvements, it says modifications include, number 2 was helping the students better understand that while some of the topics may be hard to discuss, it's important to know. I think this was in your slide, but it makes me wonder, so wait a minute, are these groups of students, is the class being asked to discuss, or is it just she's presenting? And then it also says now ask, that's one question. The second one, number 3, modifying portions of the curriculum, example, not asking the children to say the types of abuse out loud. You know, how much is going on with the children versus the teacher presenting? Because I don't, are you saying that you have been asking, more interaction with the children and you're going to be changing that? Or what does this actually mean, these number 2 and number 3 here?
Well, I think that some of the feedback we got is that some of this was a little scary or hard for kids to hear about. And we decided that the more information that the kids have about these issues, the less scary it's going to be. So we are hoping to have more conversations, bring our parents in to have more conversations with students about some of these topics. And the more knowledge they have, the more comfortable kids are going to be. They're going to be comfortable saying that someone in their life is making them feel uncomfortable, maybe touching them in a place that they shouldn't be touched, and that they're going to feel comfortable saying that to their safe adult.
Sure, but in terms of what's age appropriate, like for example, someone brought up, pornography in 3rd grade. I'm not sure how much, that needs to be addressed in 3rd grade versus just, as you talked earlier about your swimming suit on and private parts under your swimming suit, that kind of thing.
And that's
There's
what
a lot of
we do
different
not,
ways to do it.
pornography's been taken out of the curriculum. We don't talk about pornography, we don't address it, we talk about safe touch and what that means. And that means a place that your body, the safe parts of your body are covered by a bathing suit. And so we don't discuss that piece at all. We totally took that out. We told Child Health that they needed to take that out too. And so it's out of the curriculum.
Good, that's good. Well, that's why I want to see the curriculum before
Yeah,
it starts in again, because I
Yes.
want to make sure that those kind of things aren't,
Yes, yes, I agree.
Any questions from the board?
I just want to add, I spent a number of years being a parent teacher for the Think First program, bullying prevention program. And I think one of the successes of Think First was that it was done at the classroom level, not at the assembly level.
And I really think that smaller is better as far as giving kids, I think you get into that assembly and boy, you see those kids, they're not focused on what's going on up there. And you get them in a classroom, we at Wagner Ranch, we got to observe a Speak Up, Be Safe lesson this year, and we just stumbled into it. We were real fortunate to have the opportunity to see it. And to have the kids there in a small group, and with a presenter doing, Carol just did a great job with it. And one of the best things we could do, especially at the younger grades, but even up through 5th grade with Think First, was the role playing. Because I'll never forget, one of the lessons was about a kid tried to bully another kid into stealing a bicycle. There's just a random bike sitting there, and it's this classic Think First scenario. And oftentimes on that one, I try and get through the lesson fast because all the kids want to role play.
Okay.
And I think you know better than I do,
Yes.
but you
Yes.
get those kids up there and actually working through the scenario, and I think it truly hits home. So I really believe that the classroom level is the place to do it, and I think the feedback you got and the changes you're going to make to encourage more even smaller group work and role plays is going to be a real positive thing to do. The other thing is that it seems to me that the high schools are now spending a fair amount of time on this topic, and with a kid, 2 kids in high school this year, they had a number of assemblies on the issue, and it did spark good discussion at home. So I do believe in Speak Up, Be Safe, because I think those conversations at home at whatever age appropriate level for each family are really, really important to have. So for us, with a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, we got to have some really fruitful discussions. And if you read the headlines today and see what's going on college campuses right now with sexual abuse, this whole topic is unfortunate, but it's real. And I think that you see what's going on college campuses, you can follow it back to high school, and I think the education does have to start, unfortunately, at earlier and earlier ages. So I'm really in support of the program. I think you guys have done a great job. I really appreciate Orinda, Moraga, and Lafayette being the pilot, really taking the leadership position. And a year ago when we made this commitment, I said the same thing, which is I think we took a leadership position on this. I think you guys have done a great job of getting a lot of feedback, because a pilot program is just that, it's a pilot program. And I think by incorporating this feedback, it is going to make the program better and stronger. And I think you are going to see all these other districts following suit, getting excited and signing up. So I really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you very much.
One other question I had was, because we are focusing on smaller level, and I know the program incorporates a lot of emphasis on communication and communicating even one-on-one with the facilitator or teacher. I guess my question is, what can we do to better prepare teachers or facilitators for those individual interactions that come? And again, I'm an ER physician, so I do this a lot, but someone else may not have that level of comfort in those one-on-one pop-up sort of conversations. I was wondering what our thought is on helping those interactions be more prepared.
Well, for example, when a student decides to say something out loud in the classroom, and the teacher again and the staff person is there, they ask the child to hold that thought, and that after the program, that child can come and talk to the staff person and the teacher, and just talk a little bit more about what the child wants to say in that situation. And if it does raise to the level of reasonable suspicion, then everybody's a mandated reporter, and the mandated reporter piece comes into play. But for the most part, what we're telling kids is that these are good topics for them to go home and tell their parents or tell their safe adult. The emphasis is on talking to your safe adult, talking to your parent about what's making you uncomfortable and feeling unsafe. And that's sort of the strategy around how we work with the individual students around these issues.
Can I just ask one?
Sure.
So you mentioned that ideally the program would be 1st through 7th grade. So is the plan to try to do that next year, or are we planning on keeping it as?
I think our memorandum of understanding is to keep things as they are for the next year, but the best practice model ideally is for students to have this curriculum each year to really prepare them for those future situations that probably will occur in their
I mean,
lives.
my thought would, because like the bullying piece, they totally get, the harassment piece, they totally get, the cyber bullying, internet safety, like that one, the child abuse, sex abuse, part of me feels, well, maybe, that's sort of like what we teach our kids when they're little, what you cover in your bathing suit, this is your private parts, and, like, you kind of do that as a parent, hopefully. I mean, maybe the point is, like, this is another thing that we have to let the schools do. I just want to make sure that the curriculum is really age appropriate, so I
Yes.
appreciate.
Yes, it is. And it does give the parent that, those tools again, to be that leading person in that child's life, to talk to them about those child abuse safety issues. So it opens up the communication. Not every parent, believe it or not every parent talks to their child about child abuse. They just don't. But this gives parents the opportunity to have those very important conversations in an age-appropriate way, and that builds. So each year, they can still have those ongoing conversations with their student about safety.
So now it's time for public comment. I have a public comment card from Rebecca Parrish.
Hello, thank you very much for your time. My name is Rebecca Parrish. I'm a parent in Moraga. I have 3 kids. I'm also a member of the Moraga Student Safety Committee since 2012, and I'm a member of the CAPC Board of Directors. I'm also a physician, primarily specializing in chronic disease management. I'm also the, I guess, how should I'm only doing this by way of, become clear later, but medical director for continuing medical education and evidence-based programming for the system by whom I'm employed. So I regularly review data programs, studies, and evidence-based protocols as part of my career. I just wanted to have the opportunity to speak positively about this program. When you look at adult health outcomes, as they relate to child abuse, the data is actually overwhelming. And the Kaiser system actually routinely addresses past issues of abuse and trauma. And they do this, they teach all their physicians to do this because it actually affects adult health outcomes in such a dramatic proportion of people. This was the pilot year for the program, and I know that Carol and her staff, the Carols and their staff, have worked on changing it with the feedback that they've gotten from the parents, and the needs of the Lombardo community may be slightly different than perhaps the prototype for which the program was developed. But unfortunately, we all know that we're not that different from any of these other cities or areas in the ways, many of these ways it matters to our kids. So I just wanted to throw my personal, as a parent, and professional, via my profession and position behind the program, and really emphasize that this is just about education, and it's just about giving kids tools to better protect themselves, and that's really the point of the program.
Thank you. Charles Shannon.
Charles Shannon, President, but I'm speaking as an individual on this one. There are other forms of harassment that I haven't heard are being addressed. Often I hear, and this includes elementary school, verbal harassment, comments such as, "You're such a tomboy, you're such a sissy, that's so gay." I think our kids really don't understand how those words can be very hurtful, not just to people who are dealing with their own gender identity or sexual orientation, but just kids who don't understand those things and hear those comments. I recall one year, it was in first grade, a little girl said the first day of school, "You'll never see me in a dress. I don't feel like a girl." And the kids made a lot of comments, and she struggled with that throughout the year, and I definitely spoke with her parents and provided the support that I felt was appropriate. But I felt really bad for her because I'm a person that is very much interested in addressing all issues and making sure that kids are safe. And I don't know that equipping our kids with an understanding that those comments can be hurtful as well. What tools are kids getting to deal with those kinds of comments on our campuses? I think that can be done in an age-appropriate way. I felt that I did. I am a trained human rights advocate, and I know there are ways to address that that are comfortable for parents, and parents can be a part of developing a part of the program in addition to what we've heard tonight that can help address many of those comments that are made. So I just wanted to say that I'm more than happy to work together with the program director, give my input. I definitely want the input of the parent community as well. I want it to be something that is, that people feel okay about. But I think that we may be missing that critical part. I know that my best friend in junior high committed suicide. Didn't have to happen, but there wasn't anybody talking about what he could do to feel safe. He didn't understand why people were making those comments and didn't understand that was something you should tell a trusted adult. And I know that this is a chronic problem throughout the world. And I don't think enough of us are taking it serious. One of the highest suicide rates is for our GLBT and transgender community. And a lot of people just don't want to talk about those things because they don't want to believe that could, that their child could be GLBT or transgender. But we can't let any child suffer. And so I think we need to really make sure that part of the program addresses that, again, in an age-appropriate way.
Mark Gunbacker?
Hi, thank you. I'm just speaking on behalf of our family, who's been a longtime supporter of the center, and I'm a Lafayette father. I have 2 girls. Both of them were fortunate because they were in 3rd and 6th grade this year to attend training. And it was probably one of, I think, the most important things that they learned this year, and someone to speak in support of it for what's going on in Orinda and make sure that it continues here. It was, we all moved to Mama Orinda for the value of education and really important things that we're doing. And, there's schools around the Bay Area that have done this kind of training for years, and I think we're behind the curve in having taken this long to do this. And so I applaud all of you and the other Mama Orinda school boards to put something like this into place when we did. I think it's a brave thing to do, and I think definitely want to make sure that it's continued. One of the things that comes up is it is an uncomfortable topic. I mean, even in this forum, I think it's been a little bit uncomfortable to talk about, the private parts that are under your swimsuits and those kinds of things. But my daughters both came home, and I asked them both what they thought. It was a really interesting conversation when my 3rd grader came and handed me her Safe Adult card and asked me to be one of her safe adults. That was probably one of the best conversations we had with What'd You Do at School Today all year. And she gave one to my wife and one to a very close friend. And what I now know is all the different things that she's learned this year, she learned how to communicate difficult things. And if we as adults have problems communicating, the kids are going to have a really hard time to communicate it. And if we let the fact that it's a little bit uncomfortable or there may be some negative pieces come out of it to stop doing something like this or not include the difficult things in the conversations, we've really, I think, done our children a disservice. And I think that's what a lot of us show up at these meetings for, where you guys all wanted a service, because we're doing a service for our children. And I think this is something that we need to do. The risk of not doing it is just too great. We've seen it happen. We read the newspapers. It's happened in 2 of the 3 districts. I think Orinda's just lucky it didn't happen in theirs too. It can happen anywhere, we know that. And it's too risky not to continue a program like this. Thanks.
Christina Churchill?
My name is Christina Churchill, and I'm a third grade teacher in Lafayette. I teach at Spring Hill Elementary School. I've been a teacher there for 17 years. And I came to speak to you, I'm also a graduate of Acalanes, to speak to the board about how important this program is. I was in the classroom with my third grade students during this program, and I copied down one of my students' journals. The talk this morning kind of freaked me out. Most of what she was talking about freaked me out. Why would she talk about that? I wonder how many times she does it every day. And yes, it was awkward and it was uncomfortable for the students, but at the same time, these students not only talked about the topic in the classroom, but they went home and it opened a door for the students to talk to their parents about it. And it is, I have a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old, and it is an uncomfortable topic of conversation. But once that door is open, it makes it a lot easier to walk through. And I think that this program, the Speak Up, Be Safe program, opens that door for us as teachers, and it opens the door for us as parents to have an open and honest line of communication with our children. I also tutor 20 students between 1st and 9th grade, and several of my older students brought it up. This is weird, why do we need to do this? Why are we talking about this? This doesn't happen here. But it does happen here. When I was a student at Acalanes, I was part of a program that went to the middle schools and taught about basically the same type of thing, but it was students teaching to students. And it was a great program. It was called Youth Educators. I don't know whatever happened to it, but basically it's the same type of program, but it has more backing behind it and more research behind it now. And although there are some things that needed to be tweaked, they were very open to my feedback, which is why I'm here. They've talked to me on several occasions about what I would change and what I would like to see implemented in my classroom. I think it's a great program, and I think that we're doing our children a great service by offering this program to them. So thank you for your time.
Any other comments from the public on this item? Any other comments or discussions from the board?
I do have a quick follow-up question, just in response to what Charles was saying. Is bullying that's specifically addressed at LGBT kids addressed as part of the program? Or, is language like that used?
Yes, we do give the example with the 5th and 6th graders about when you're on the playground or you're talking to your peers and you say, that's so gay, and what that means and why that's hurtful. So we do a little bit, not enough, I think, with this curriculum, but again, we only have 2 sessions, 60 minutes long. Maybe that's something we can incorporate more in the teacher activities, the teacher reinforcement activities. I think that we're just scraping the surface on some of this, but we definitely use that example and talk about why that is so hurtful. We've had students say to our teacher and our staff person, my staff person, that they're scared because they have 2 moms and they don't want anybody to know. And this isn't Mom Orinda. I have 2 dads and I'm scared. I don't want anybody to know that. And this program really helps these kids talk about that, be able to say that to a safe adult, so that safe adult can give them the tools and the resources to help cope with that, so they can feel more comfortable and safe in their school environment. So it does come up for us. So thank you for those comments.
I'd like to see this a take-home too to parents, because I've had a number of parents come up to me and assume that I live in San Francisco because I'm gay. And I think that I have dealt with discrimination in this district because even our parents don't necessarily understand that gay people are all over, not just in San Francisco. And so I hear hurtful comments every year here in Orinda. So our parents need that information as well.
Other comments from the board? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Discussion only, so
Next is action item A, 2014-2017 Local Control Accountability Plan.
I'm just gonna put it up here because So, you've seen this document before. This is the Local Control Accountability Plan, and tonight, after we've had public input and we have had 2 public hearings, we're bringing this forward to you again for board approval. So, since our last public hearing, there have been some additional changes based on information we received from the county office, who has reviewed our plan, and what they say is needed and recommended for state approval. And so I've included those changes on the agenda bill of your in your packet, and I've highlighted them here so that you have a picture of that. But overall, everything else in the content of the plan is exactly the same as it was presented in previous public hearings. What has been added, first has been added on page 3 of the plan, which just emphasizes the link between the single school plans of each school and the LCAP. And that is something that is in process, and the school plans will align to the LCAP, and those will be coming to the board in early fall. Another addition has been a clearer description of who is on the coordinating council. And so, although we did list this before, the county recommended that we emphasize that they were the parent advisory for the LCAP. With the LCAP, you do not need to have a separate advisory, but they wanted to have us name who we identified as the parent advisory. But just as a reminder, we had many groups that we met with, and those are still listed here. It wasn't just the coordinating council, but we met with OEA, the leadership team, CSEA, student leadership at OIS. We had an EL parent meeting, and then the curriculum committee as well. If I were to scroll further, one of the areas that it was recommended that we needed to emphasize was to spell out for our EL students and for the targeted subgroups, which are the low income and which are also foster youth, where the actions will benefit them. So when we come to pages like what will be different or improved for students, we had previously the curriculum committee will identify Common Core materials, support materials. I've added in for ELD and English Language Arts, which supports what we have said in our goals. So it really is just providing more clarity for those subgroups. And that continues throughout. I've named here examining the student data was what we had previously, but it was emphasizing that we will, within examining the data for all students, we will also be looking at our significant and numerical subgroups. The last big change is not highlighted, but I will explain. As you recall, when we were presented the plan at the last meeting, we had, at the recommendation of the county, identified a list, naming here where our expenditures to support these actions could be found. And after we submitted it to the county said, you know, you've done what we told you to do, but it might be better if instead of putting this phrase in every box, to put an asterisk next to it, and then expand more on what the actions performed will be. There's not that much space in the template, as you know, and as I've mentioned previously, to list those actions. So what you'll see here, for example, and I used this at the last meeting, develop math courses at the middle school. This is the middle school. Develop math courses that provide accelerated pathways for students in grades 6 through 8. And then under it, responds to the funding piece. Expenditures to support these funds can be found in the salary, benefit, and operating expenditures of the district's general fund. So up here, we're addressing what's the actions performed each year, and then what are the anticipated expenditures for the action, including the funding source. So what we've done here is we put the action, monitor and assess math course pathways for acceleration as needed, and then there's the asterisk, which refers back to this phrase. And the same thing for the third year. So with that, as we walk through the plan, I've added some more words to clarify what that means. For example, in year 2 of this plan, we had implement the K-8 shared expectations, and then it ended. Now I was able to emphasize in all classrooms for reading, writing, and mathematics, which goes back to our action here. The county has since reviewed these changes throughout and have said that it looks good, and once it's approved, they're ready to accept it. So at this point, and this is another change which emphasizes the focus on the needs of targeted and numerically significant subgroups. It's still 25 pages. And the next steps for the plan, once it's approved, is it will go to the county, and they will, if they have any other changes or additions that are required, they will get it back to us before August 15th. If not, then they send it on to the state, and it becomes our LCAP. It will be approved, and it's our LCAP that we will use over the next 3 years.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
So do we have to re-adopt it every year or just every 3 years?
Every 3 years, but every year there'll be an annual review, and there'll be a progress report on our accomplishments for that year. So next year, we'll present accomplishments, but you won't, I don't believe you approve those accomplishments. Do you recall, Lorraine? I think it's just a report on the...
I think it's just a report and update, but
What if you wanted to like modify something based on what happened? We don't know yet. Just curious. And will the LCAP, will this whole process impact anything to do with our site plans as far as the timing of them or what they look like?
They won't impact what they look like. The district goal will be the LCAP goal, essentially, and then the alignment of any actions will be placed in the school plans. But many of our actions are already there or have been planned on based on our curriculum plan and our tech plan and our facilities plan.
So the site plan should be presented to us in sort of the same manner that we have.
As a follow-up question, so last year I think we got them in the fall. Is that what we're going to do this year for the site plans in the fall?
The target and the goal of the principals is to have them ready for you in September and October, depending on when their site councils meet and when their staff can provide the input. But we want to get them to you now that we are better prepared with understanding where our budgets might be and what our goals, our overarching goals are. And we won't have data this year from STAR tests to review, so we're building the plan based on this LCAP. They're feeling that they can get them ready for you. that the site council still needs to be involved in that approval process.
Any questions from the board? Any comments from the public on this item? Further discussion from the board? If not,
Well,
we
I
can-
just want to make one comment. The thing about, do we approve it in every 3 years or whatever, it seems like if it's a 3-year plan and then we've gone through year 1, then there's only 2 years more. It seems like we would be, we're not going to, they're probably figuring this out, but we're not going to wait till year 3 and then adopt a new 3-year plan, right? We're probably going to have an ongoing thing that's 3 years every year. But I don't know if you've got any sense of that, or that's yet to be determined. But,
Maybe one way or the other.
yeah, I can't imagine, I imagine that we're going to have a sort of revolving 3-year thing, and that we would update it every year.
We were actually having that conversation today. What I do want to point out is this column here is where we are supposed to insert our annual update and review of the actions for each year. So it would be in this column where we would be stating information. That's what we know as of this time. We do hope they will improve the template, give us more room.
Yeah, exactly. The tiny space.
Okay, great. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll move that we adopt the LCAP for 2014-2017.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Okay. Next, Lorraine, action item B, fiscal year 2014-15 adoption of budget.
So each year, school districts are required to adopt a balanced budget on or before June 30th. At the June 9th board meeting, a detailed review of the proposed 2014-15 budget was presented. A formal public hearing was held at that time for the purpose of receiving public comment. Copies of the proposed budget have been available in the district office since June 3rd, which is a requirement of our adoption. No changes have been made to the proposed budget since the last time you saw the budget presented. So it's our recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the 2014-15 budget as previously presented.
Thank you. Questions from the board? I was going to say we can move on. Any comments from the public? Seeing none? Any further discussion from the board?
I'd like to move that we approve the fiscal year 2014-2015 adoption budget.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That was approved and unanimous. Okay, next, action item C, resolution 1417, authorizing year-end budget transfers.
So the resolution that's in the board packet is presented annually to the Board of Trustees for approval. The resolution delegates the authority to the Contra Costa County Office of Education to make year-end budget transfers and revenue transfers as part of our year-end closing process. These transfers are necessary to balance and close out particular accounts. So this is a customary resolution that comes before the board each year as part of our year-end closing process.
Great, thank you. Any questions on this process? Any comments from the public on this item? Okay. We have a motion, and I believe this is a roll call vote.
I move that we pass resolution 1417, authorizing year-end budget transfers.
Second?
Sarah? Aye. Julie?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye. Thank you. move on to what's known as opposed. Let's go to, oh, there we go.
It wasn't very far.
I'm just gonna hop down.
Way down.
Okay, action item D, contract with Amblue Construction, renovation of Sleepy Hollow Elementary restrooms.
The last board meeting, I was asked to get the contract in to get the restrooms done at Sleepy Hollow this summer as well. So we did that with Amblue Construction. They're doing the rest of our restrooms, as long as we're under 10% of that project. With any additions, we can do it as part of that project without going out to a rebid. So we've got Amblue Construction back. We sent out an RFP to them with the scope of work we wanted. They came back with it. The only thing we had to do is take out some of the painting, and our maintenance staff will do the painting so we can get it under the 10%. And their bid is $41,600 to do the project. And that's all the bathrooms, with the exception of the little kindergarten bathrooms that weren't really in bad shape. I was just going to do them to replace some old flooring in there. But I can do that next summer. And so at $41,600, my recommendation is that the board approve the amount of $41,600 to do all of the restrooms at Sleepy Hollow with the exception of the kindergarten. And yes, that's all.
Well, and I really appreciate you hearing loud and clear from the board 2 weeks ago, and I am truly impressed being in the construction business and your ability to turn this thing around so quickly. So I applaud you and I thank you for doing this, and I'm really impressed. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it too, and I think, it seems like it was the right thing to do also, so I'm glad for the way to do that, so thank you.
I just had a quick, well, we've not seen these RFPs and stuff, I don't think necessarily in our board packet before, but do you have to do these, or does Jaleel help with these, or how do these get generated?
Jaleel and I put it together. It's part of the project management process.
And then you take, this is the document that you send to people and they walk around and bid on it, kind of thing?
That's just an RFP just for Amblue Construction. On a big project, the packets are a lot bigger, like the big roofing project we're going to discuss later. That packet's a little bit bigger. It's normally called a project manual. It has a lot of blueprints in it and things like that.
So you get with the architect and they draw it up and then you put all that together?
We tell them what we want done. The architect goes through the old archive files we have, see what kind of structure it is, and make sure it's going to be sound with the new weight that's going to be put on the roof, things like that.
Okay. Just echo what else is said. Thanks for putting all that together in a short period of time.
Yeah, I just have one question, and I also appreciate your work on this, and it is impressive. So if this is the same contractor and just added more work, did you get any kind of assurance that you can get all the projects done before school starts?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, wonderful, thank you.
Any comments from the public on this item?
My comment is I really appreciate, I attended many of those meetings where parents gave input, and many parents at Sleepy Hollow had said that was very important. So again, I appreciate you guys' work, and also the board bringing that up as something important to do this year. So thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Other discussion from the board or a motion?
I move that we approve action item D, contract with Amblue Construction Inc. to renovate Sleepy Hollow Elementary restrooms.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It was unanimous. Action item E, contract with BC Construction for new retaining wall at Glorieta Kindergarten Playground.
Okay, this is for the small retaining wall, and runs the length of the kindergarten playground, Glorieta. It's a very old redwood retaining wall. It's around 18 inches high. It's on a slope there that goes up to Martha Road that the kindergarten kids love to play on. So we can't really make any barriers on the hillside that kids will be tripping and falling over. So it's a pretty rough little project to do. But what we're going to do is tear that wall out, put in the new keystone type block wall, keep it around 18 inches, give them a little set of steps to go up instead of jumping off the retaining wall, which they do now.
Sort of that.
Yeah. We're also going to put new drainage in there because during winter months they're on that hill, so there's no grass or anything grows on it, and mud always comes downhill. So now there'll be drainage there. There'll also be a swale at the bottom that'll catch any surface water and take it to the drain at the side of the yard. And I think there's 6 separate drains behind the retaining wall that dump into a common drain also. And this is, our low bid was BC Construction, and their price, as you can see, is $49,500. And my recommendation is that the board approve the bid in the amount of $49,500.
Great. Questions from the board? There was a huge disparity in the bids. Ransom came in really high, and I know Ransom does a lot of work for our district. I know them. Do you account for anything? They're really busy, so they can go high, or did somebody miss something? What usually?
That's usually what happens with Ransom. They have huge jobs,
Yeah.
and they just put a big figure on it.
Yeah, nice of them to give us a bid.
But there's a discrepancy even with the second place bidder. And so we've asked this contractor 3 separate times, are you sure you want to stay with your bid? And he says he can do it. So we've never used this contractor before, but his license is checked out, his references. So we'll keep a close eye on them.
I know who they are. They've been around a long time.
Yeah, they have.
So
It's the first time they've ever bid on a school project here in Orinda.
I think it's great to see that disparity, because as a board member, it looks to me like we're saving $45,000. That might not be true, but it does highlight the value of the bid process. I appreciate your efforts.
Any comments from the board? Questions? Any comments from the public? Charles?
Just really quick, a few years ago, having been a classroom affected by flood, and also those kindergarten rooms. I really appreciate this. Thank you, Ed, for all your work on this. We're really going to appreciate should we get some more flood waters. This will hopefully prevent that from happening. So thank you.
Other comments from the public? Any other comments from the board? I guess I'll just say I've had 3 kindergartners go through Glorieta, and they love the hillside. I mean, it's fancy equipment is great too, but it gives some kindergartners some roughage to play in, and they enjoy it. So it's good that it's getting tidied up and cleaned up there. So thanks for your work on it.
I did make a little typo error on there. It should be $49,900. Lorraine just pointed out their bid form actually does say $49,900. I typed $49,500. We didn't say quite as much.
I was going to say, well, that changes everything.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with BC Construction for new retaining wall at Glorieta Kindergarten Playground.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, unanimous. And then, item F, contract with Best Contracting Inc. for walkway canopy with OIS and Del Rey schools.
And this is the one we had an addendum on to the agenda, because I made a huge mistake here and typed up the wrong bidder. It's actually Stronger Building Services for the Orinda Intermediate School and Del Rey School canopy roofing projects.
That's the second,
Right. And the reason was Best came in at the low bid of $325,092. that they looked at the contract again, and they asked them if they were sure that they were good with that number, and they were not good with it. So they pulled their bid, and so the bid has gone to the second low bidder, which is Stronger Building Services for $450,000.
Wow. So that's higher than the next one, which is the Wagner Ranch roofing, I mean, just in terms of relative costs and projects. I don't know if you were going to make more of a presentation, but I'm curious why it's so expensive to do the canopies.
The reason is canopies are always more expensive because that's usually in a school where all the conduits and utilities run, the gas lines, the electrical, the water. So those all have to be lifted up very carefully, and then the roof has to be done underneath. Especially if there's dry rot in the roof, which there usually is on canopies, it's a lot more involved and a lot more labor intensive.
Okay, and the need for it, it says here that there's water dripping through the light fixtures.
Correct.
And then also that there's dry rot. Is that the biggest problem, or is there any problem with the utilities or anything like that?
No. But the roofs do have dry rot, and there's a section in Delray where we won't let the staff walk on it when they go up there and work on the roof.
Okay.
If I can just shed a little light, Sarah, so at the Delray, when we had the facilities task force meeting at Delray, Mr. Steve was there. I don't remember exactly who made the comment, but a bunch of those canopies, you could take a broom handle and top of the canopy, which is essentially plywood, you can just poke it right through it. The dry rot is so extensive that they've rotted out, so it's really significant.
Just a point of clarification, from the project list that we, have been working on, are these the breezeway roofs, or are these the
Yes.
hallway canopies? These are the
Breezeways.
breezeway roofs.
Well, speaking of the priority list, previously we had an action item, I think it was a couple of months ago, for the roofs, and it was for the contractor to do the drawings, right? For the roofs for Wagner Ranch and these canopy roofs. And then, are you following me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he did the drawings, and now we have two separate projects. But I remember voting for that because of the roofing, the Wagner Ranch roofing. I mean, we got a roof over a building that's a problem, we gotta deal with it. But I don't, in terms of our prioritization process, I think it's, it's a little not that clear to me that, what you just said, Matt, sounds very significant about the weakness in the canopy. But generally, I wouldn't think a canopy roof is so significantly a priority, and we're giving it to a different contractor. So it's not like just because we're doing a roof at Wagner, that's a roofing project, that we have to prioritize the same level of a roof somewhere else when we're giving it to a different contractor. And I'm just bringing this up because, our prioritization process doesn't seem to be as clear as it could be, or as, as straightforward, or as, I don't know, I just question some of our priorities because so many things were grouped together, that then, yes, that sounds like a priority, but then when you get the separate projects, well, maybe not so much. And this canopy roof, I mean, we're not doing anything about air conditioning and some of the other things, door locks, which I also think are a big priority, and yet we do have this in front of us. So I was hoping we were going to get that priority list back on our agenda so we could talk about the whole list again, but it's not here, so I hope we can do that. Maybe in an upcoming meeting or two.
And I was going to say that I really appreciate you getting, it's so nice to see all these projects starting to come through, and these are the items that we did previously approve, obviously, or other projects that we've already approved as well, that, I'm assuming we'll be seeing in the coming months. But I think it's really great to see these projects coming up, and, this actually, I think the original cost estimate on these was around 200, and then our amended was at 526, and, so when I see 450, I think, obviously it's expensive, but I think they're pretty necessary items to get done. So, thank you
And also these become a structural issue where, I mean, earthquake or a bad storm or something like that, and there's potential for a canopy to come down on somebody?
Yeah, last year at OIS, the canopies there were all plastered, so it's really hard to tell if you have problems structurally inside them. But the head custodian there, Chris Ortiz, was on the ball and looked up the breezeway one morning when he got there, and he noticed a bulge in the plaster. And so we went up there and sure enough, it was completely dried out in there. We had to tear the plaster out and all the cross beams and everything. So the problem with the canopies, they aren't over a classroom, but they're really the most dangerous part of the roof because kids are on there more than anything else. And a lot of times they don't give you any warning that they're going.
Any other comments from the public?
Charles Shannon, President. I would just hope that there would be some type of method of detecting this kind of extensive deterioration. It sounds like it just didn't happen overnight, and my worry is that one of those would have come crashing down on students or staff. So I don't know what's out there in the industry to detect the ones that are hidden above the plaster, but if you could just stick a broomstick through it at this point, and it probably has been dangerous for quite a while. So I'd love to hear in the future what type of monitoring will better ensure that we don't wait until the last minute to repair something like this. Thank you.
Comments or questions from the board? Oh, sorry, any other comments from, any more comments from the public? Seeing none, okay, sorry, Sarah.
I'll just add that my comment about this project, I wasn't trying to say we shouldn't do it, but just that there's a lot of projects we need to do. And, you know, I've been told that we can't do a lot of them at once, we have to pace them out, so we're doing these. I'm just saying, you know, there's a lot of projects that we need to do, and I hope we can talk about the priority list again soon.
And this work is scheduled to be done this summer.
I'd like to make a motion to approve stronger building services for OAS and Delray canopy roofs in the amount of $450,000.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay. Item 1. Contract with Enterprise Roofing for roofing projects at Wagner.
Okay, this is for all the building roofs at Wagner. We did the breezeways last year, or 2 years ago, excuse me. All the roofs there are in need of new shingle roofing. It's got 3 layers on it, so it has to all be completely torn off now. That's the maximum amount of layers of roofing you can put on a roof before it has to be torn completely off. So we had public bidding for this project as well. There were a total of 9 bidders, and there was a low bidder of Alcal Roofing, but they made a clerical error in their paperwork, so we had to pull them from the bid. And the next in line was Enterprise Roofing. Enterprise Roofing is a big company, so we were happy to see them get it. This is a very big project. It's every building with the exception of the gymnasium. And they say they can do it in the time span that we've given them. And their bid is $379,281. And the recommendation is that the board approve the contract for that amount.
Questions from the board?
I'm happy to see this one because the original estimate that you gave us, I always go back to that stuff, was $308,000, and I think you mentioned it was like $1 million, so to see something more in line with $300,000 was much more palatable to me, so.
Tyson's not here, so I'm just going to say the word placeholder. Just to represent Tyson in his absence.
I had a question. If you could just remind me, how long ago was that third roof put on? I know you've told us before, but.
I think it's when we reopened Wagner School, which would
Like
be
30 years ago.
When you say the 30 in the top
right
layer,
around there, yeah.
Yeah.
you're talking about the top layer.
The top.
Mhm.
That's a good long time.
So this actually removes all
Down to
layers
plywood.
that's on.
And put on new.
And then
You
we-
said all buildings except the gym, so they don't have any portables, or what,
we don't need portables.
it doesn't include portables, all the regular buildings, right?
It does all the gutters too, all the gutter work and
Oh, good.
Is there any comments from the public on the site?
I really appreciate the energy efficiency of using a lighter color to help reduce the heat gain inside the buildings. I think that's helping us head in the right direction of saving money. So I applaud you for that, Ed. Thank you.
Other comments from the public?
I got one more question, so since we're redoing that, you still can't put solar up there, right? On the roof, or can we?
you could, but I sure wouldn't want to. It's just, it's a really high-pitched roof,
Oh,
and I think it would be much more advantageous to put it on the ground somewhere.
Are there comments or a motion to proceed?
Move that we approve action item G, contract with Enterprise Roofing for roofing projects at Wagner.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved and unanimous. Okay, Dr. Jaconet, Board of Trustees meeting schedule.
Thank you. This is the trustee meeting schedule that was presented to you for discussion at the last board meeting, and it's been brought back for approval.
Questions on this?
I have a question, which I should have brought up last time. I might be on vacation August 11th, and I'm wondering, is there a reason we couldn't have made it the following week? Because it does still feel like it's, in the heat of summer, and I think, a lot of people are still on vacation.
Yes, the main reason is we need a board meeting in as early as August as possible, because we have people to hire and bring on board and actions that need to be taken in advance, so we don't meet during July.
Okay.
And we will have some hiring to do.
Yes, significant hirings.
The only other thing I noticed, Joe, when I was putting this in my calendar, was that November 3rd is election day. I know we'll have 3 school board slots open for that day. I don't see any problem with it. I don't see any reason why we'd move it, but it is of some significance.
Well, the election's on Tuesday.
Oh, thank you.
So the day
Usually,
before.
usually.
This is the day before.
Thank you.
Any comments from the public on this item? See none? Other discussion on meeting schedule? Or a motion to approve?
I move that we approve action item H, 2014-15 Board of Trustees meeting schedule.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed and unanimous. Okay, next is consent item D, consolidated application and reporting systems. Do we have an updated?
So staff has pulled this item and is distributing an addendum for you to review prior to your approval. In your packet, there is a change on page 2 of 2 on the application for funding, and additional copies are on the back table for the public. So in your packet for Title III Part A LEP, which stands for Limited English Proficient, it says no, and it should be a yes. The funding that we received this year from Title III LEP was $3,360. So the state has a new process for applying for these funds, which is now through the consolidated application.
from the board on this item?
Yeah, the 3,000, on the first page of the packet, it mentions 30,000. So what is the 3,000 for that you just mentioned? I'm confused.
There's a new page replacing a page
Right,
in the packet.
okay. But there wasn't any dollars on the old page
No,
or the new page?
No.
So the
There were-
3,000 is just for that page?
yeah, just,
I see. And the total of all of it is what's on the first page, the 30,000. Is that right? Am I looking at the wrong page? Page 52.
on the agenda bill, we had listed that, how much we received this year from Title II and from Title III immigrant funds, so this would be an additional to
And it was 3,000,
$360.
3,000. Hard to hear the back.
It's our last vacuum.
A little bit right.
Okay, are there any comments from the public on this item? Any other questions or comments from the board? If not, we have an item for motion to approve this item.
I'd like to move we approve item G of the consent calendar, consolidated application and reporting system for 2014-2015.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
I'm in favor.
That was unanimous approval. Next is consent item F, amendment to BaySci partnership agreement. Page
Yes.
40 of our packet.
I just asked that we pull this because it is based science and I hear little bits about it, but we don't discuss it too much. And it mentions here last year, 5 Orinda teachers were trained. And then this year, there'll be additional teachers. I don't see the number right now. But since we have this new science, not Common Core, but the other thing, next generation curriculum, you know, I think this is really important and I'd just like to hear a little bit more about it. And if there's 5 teachers last year and then how many teachers this year, and you know, are those, like for the middle school, obviously they're going to send their science teachers, but for the elementary school, how are we doing that? If there's one teacher in the school going to this training, how are they reporting back to all the other teachers in the school, or how is that all working? I'd just like to hear about it. Thanks.
So the BaySci partnership is for elementary science. It's not middle school science, it's for elementary science only, and it has been in operation since 2008. Orinda was selected as a district to participate, and there are 7 other districts that participate. With that, teachers are invited to complete an application. And so last year we had 5 teachers who applied and were accepted to participate in the Teacher Leadership Academy piece. That component also requires them, the teachers, to bring back and be a part of the facilitation of staff development for the greater good of the district in science. This year, BaySci never knows from year to year whether they're going to be funded. They're funded through Bechtel right now and the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation at some level. And so with that, we had more applicants this year in our teaching staff than they had places. But as a result, they didn't want to turn anyone away. So the 7 teachers that applied in our district, and there's representation from each of our elementary schools, were accepted. There's another component of BaySci called the Champions Academy. and individual teachers can apply for that as well. However, being part of a project district now, BaySci provides technical support to us, and that technical support is with whatever we need. And we have said we want to look at science K-8, not just K-5, so they actually have come in and helped to facilitate our training and instruction, and help us develop a vision for science, which we're still working on. And in addition, they helped our teachers to deliver staff development day last year. October 14th was Bridging Science and Literacy. And they will be helping us with a parent education night in the fall as part of our technical support. With that, it's our teachers who they work with to help lead the charge per se. So although we have some teachers who have applied who actually go to the Lawrence Hall of Science for training, BaySci comes into our district and they work with our district leadership team to make sure that we are getting the support we need in professional development. It's a very exciting organization to be a part of. I feel very lucky that our district has been included.
It sounds wonderful, yeah.
And
Just
it's all paid for by them.
since Matt brought up the election night, November 4th, I'm just noticing that our parent education night is on election night, according to this, which doesn't seem like the best thing to me. I don't know if that's a set date. Is that a set? That sounds like the date's already set.
That was the date that BaySci gave us as their availability, but I can certainly review it with them.
I would think it would be better not to be on election night myself. If they have any other dates, I don't know how anyone else feels.
Other questions or comments from the board? Any comments from the public?
I was part of the sport games BaySci Champions Academy, and they did provide training and having us come back and share out with our colleagues. In fact, my evaluation this year was focused on science, and I brought back a lot of things for teachers to try and continue to do so. They might even have a continuing mentors program that several of us may participate in and continue to share out. So it sounds like there's a few people participating, but I think it provides a lot of teacher leadership that allows for us to come back and spread that knowledge and to mentor other teachers. So hopefully that adds a little bit more understanding to the program.
Any other comments from the public?
I have one more question. So how well tied is this to the next generation science standards? Or did you say that already? I'm sorry.
It's directly tied to it.
Directly tied.
Directly tied to it.
That says that here. Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The only other thing I wanted to add, Chris, is just that, I think that the board has spoken loud and clear, and personally, because I've heard it loud and clear from the parent community, how much parents value professional development for our teachers. And I just think it's another great example of our director of curriculum and our superintendent and staff and teachers, really working hard to make themselves available and reach out for professional development and for the benefit of our students. So BaySci has really been a great success for our district, and I really applaud both our administrators and our teachers for embracing it and using it for the betterment of the education of our kids.
And the Beckman Foundation for funding it as well.
And Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation.
And just to add, the classes were on Saturdays, so there was the commitment to give up 3 Saturdays. So I appreciate that compliment, Matt. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to proceed on this item?
I move that we approve the partnership for Bay Science Education amendment to the agreement.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passed, motion unanimous. And then our last action item is consent item R, Williams Uniform Complaint Quarterly Report. Sarah, you had a question on that?
Yeah, I wanted to pull that, and I understood that it had to do with air conditioning, regarding facilities regarding air conditioning, and I think that I understand that at the previous meeting, the energy plan, we approved that he's going to do climate studies, and that's great, but I just wanted to bring up if there's anything we can do. I would like to encourage the district to take some sort of action to improve the temperatures in whatever the worst rooms in our schools, the hottest rooms in our schools are, because I know some of them don't have fans, some of them do. I know it's going to be a long process and expensive process to install air conditioning throughout, but since we've got the fall coming up, we're going to have more hot days. I think that there's got to be a way for Ed to just even buy some temporary air conditioning window units, for example, for the labs where there's computers. There was complaints that computers weren't working because the temperatures were so high, and there were complaints that I heard recently from when the testing happened that it was very uncomfortable for the kids, and it's hard for them to be doing testing during that heat. So I would think there's some way that Ed could do something temporary in terms of just buying window air conditioners, just like any of us would do in our house if we didn't have air conditioning and just wanted to cool off a room or two. That could be done even just for the computer labs for the fall. Some way to do something until such time as we can address the whole district. So that's why I wanted to bring that up regarding this consent item.
Any other questions from the board? Any comments from the public on this item? Any other discussion on this item?
I bring it up because it is our job as board to give direction to the district, even when it's not a specific action that like for this regarding, this is not an action item on air conditioning, but it is a complaint on facilities which relates to air conditioning. So it is appropriate, I feel, to give direction on trying to come up with some short-term solution until we can find a long-term solution.
I think this item is acknowledging a complaint, that there was a complaint. So I think that's what this report is.
Right,
So
I understand, but given there's a complaint, I think there's, I just wanted to say, I think it, I would rather give a direction to the district to do something about it, rather than, we know we're gonna look into the issue in the long term, right, and do climate studies and all that, and it's gonna take a while. And that's good, but it seems like we could be doing something in the short term.
I'd like to move we approve the Williams Uniform Complaint Quarterly Report for the period April 1, 2014 to June 30, 2014.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was unanimous and passed. Next, Lorraine, if you could help us discuss the Parcel Tax Independent Citizens Oversight Committee.
So the Parcel Tax Independent Citizen Oversight Committee was established in December 2011 when the bylaws were adopted by the Board of Trustees. The primary objectives and purposes of the committee are to ensure that the parcel tax proceeds are spent for their authorized purpose and to report annually to the OUSD Board of Trustees at a public meeting. The bylaws state that the committee shall have at least 5 members as established by the Board of Trustees. The bylaws also identify the term of office, which state each member of the committee shall hold an office for 2 years. The committee was appointed by the board in December of 2011. This past December marked the term completion of the current slate of committee members. Due to the complex information presented to the committee for review, several members did express in their annual report that they would be interested in continuing on the committee and/or recommend staggered terms in order to provide continuity and provide for ease of transition for the new members. This item is being presented for discussion tonight.
Okay, thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
So I think I'll, wanted to start off this discussion a bit and just put in our heads a couple of things that we might want to consider. First of all, like the committee recommended, if we would like to stagger the appointments or not, if we would like to continue with a 2-year term or not, what the date should be. We established it in December for 2 years, but that doesn't necessarily mean December is the best time for the appointment. And then the fourth item in my mind was how we, the process for filling those vacancies on an ongoing process. Those the things that I thought we could maybe discuss today.
Yeah, I mean, I think we heard loud and clear from at least one member of the committee, if not 2, that staggered would be a better way to go to afford continuity, kind of institutional knowledge on the committee. So I think that's very important. I do think we should, I'd like to make that change. I think we as a board should certainly consider that. I would look to Lorene as the Director of Business Services. I'd like to see how she recommend we structure it moving forward. I think she's had the most contact with the committee, and that's what I see. Let's let staff do their job.
Other questions?
Do all the members want to continue?
No one expressed that they did not want to continue. They all offered their services.
I think we definitely want to stagger the terms, that makes sense. We have, where we couldn't, when we made the committee, the members that didn't exist, so we needed to have all of them start at the same time, but I do think it makes sense to create a staggered term, and I guess, my initial thought is you want people to be able to, if it's a 2-year term, people should be able to apply for, it should be open to people who want to then apply for the position and be selected.
Because my thought was, if we do want to stagger, and that was the recommendation, that a 2-year term means you're doing an appointment every single year, which seems like maybe more than it needs to be. With these current members, they were, all willing to go longer than 2 years. So one thought I had was if we made it a 4-year term, which sounds long, but the commitment is meeting twice a year, so it's not a huge commitment. And then
well, and then if there is a vacancy, there's a process.
If vacancy, exactly, the process, but
right, so that every 2 years we'd be going through.
every 2 years, it just, I don't know, it just struck me as, do we really every year we want to put on the calendar, we're going to reappoint people to the parcel tax?
That was my first thought as well, is to
Yeah,
increase
I
the
know.
term.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's obviously an option, but you still have the fact, okay, then do you stagger right now? Are you saying
Well, I want to
stagger
bring
right
up
now?
something related to that, the number of people on it. I don't know why it would have to continue to be only 5. It could be 7. It could be adding people rather than, changing the 5 that are there. I'm actually on the Octawani's Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, and that started out with a larger number, then people dropped off. Some people were added, So, and also I'm aware that for bond oversight committees, the state requires 7. So I'm not sure why we have 5, there isn't a magic number, but it seems that since we started at 5, and if they all want to stay on, it would be easier to add 2 or so, and whether we change any of the 5 or what, but if you add people, it makes it a little easier than.
What's wrong with having 5? I mean, 5 is like, it's easier to get 5 people together than 7 people and 5 seems.
Well,
I mean, people that are on there are good people who can review things and make decisions. So why do we need 7? What's the benefit?
It's just to allow, when we have more people that are interested, it allows more people to participate and be on the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, which is a benefit to us to have more people involved rather than fewer. There's no real drawback. I mean, it does say you meet with a quorum, I believe. Quorum shall consist of a majority of the members. If somebody can't make it, they can't make it. And usually you set you're only meeting twice a year, so you're setting the dates well in advance.
So Lorraine, how is scheduling for you as far as getting 5 people all together? Do you think a bigger number would be harder to, harder to schedule because more people, but would it be an impediment, do you feel, or how tough is it to get 5 people, at least 5 people together?
We did have some difficulties scheduling dates. Probably 2 out of the 4 meetings, because people were out of town on trips, because work happens. And I think because the meetings are so infrequent that it kind of falls off their calendar or something. So we did have some conflicts.
And were you trying to get everyone in attendance, or were you just trying to get them in the majority?
Both. Originally, we tried to get everybody, we were trying to pick a date, and then we would have some conflicts. Because their schedule, we would schedule the next meeting at the previous meeting so that it was scheduled probably 6 to 8 months in advance. But then life happened in between, and some people weren't available. And there was one time that we had to reschedule because we didn't have a quorum.
In my conversations with one of the members of the committee, they felt like 5 was the right number. That 5 was hard enough to get 5 together, and certainly felt like they were getting the business of the committee done with 5. So I don't see any reason to increase as a committee.
I guess I agree with that too, and I think 5 is a good number.
So I just want to point out, for 5, a quorum would be, majority would be 3 people. For 7, that majority would be 4 people. It's not like it's a huge difference.
25%.
One more person. But what it does is allow you to have more people participate in the process, which is healthy when you're talking about your budget and parcel tax. But if you want to stick with 5, that's fine. What would you do? What do you guys think about the 5 that are there? And the other advantage of changing to 7 is you get some new blood in there. But if you want to stick with 5, were you thinking of keeping the same 5, or are you thinking of, doing something else? I'm not sure how you would.
So I'm not the only one to answer that, but I guess I was thinking if we have people that have been effective for a couple of years and are willing to stay, I think continuing that on would be good. But again, coming up with a stagger mechanism, so that's sort of the next level discussion on how we want to roll off 2 people or roll off 3 people at one point we do it. Again, I think it might be better to increase to a 4-year term, and then
When
every
do we create the stagger?
What's that?
When does the stagger get created? Does it get created now because it's 2 years in and this was a 2-year term, and it's changing to a 4-year, or otherwise you're looking at 4 years?
Otherwise, you're
either way.
continuing what you have, and it's going to feel like.
Well, I mean, if we continue what we have, that would be, they would effectively have a 4-year term. Or we could stagger it now and have 2 people not come back and get 2 new people now, and then we've staggered it this year. I don't know if there's necessarily an advantage one way or the other, or other than it creates, you know, something to do right now as opposed to something to do in 2 years, but.
And when do they typically meet?
They meet in, right after the audit is complete, so it's December, January, and then they meet at the end of the fiscal year, so it's usually at the end of June. So they meet at the end of June to kind of finalize how the proceeds have been spent and look at what's budgeted for the following year. And then they analyze the audit and compare what the auditor's findings were, and if they agree with the findings, and do their final analysis like in December, January.
So following up on that, so I was thinking in timing of when 2 thoughts were. One, either do it in January, which seems like maybe a bad idea, as far as changing people over, or July, which is kind of mid-year school year, but maybe even better would be like a September, October. I don't know what your thoughts would be. I mean, when would a good term date be? If not I guess again, if not December, January, because that's when you're starting to do some work.
December, January is sort of the completion of that year. That's when they get the final report of the previous fiscal year.
So spring would maybe be better then?
So, right, so I
Okay.
think that would probably be better to just like the new officers and then, or the committee members, because if we need to have meetings to bring everybody up to speed, more of an orientation, and that gives us time prior to the budget for the following year being analyzed in like the June meeting, or it can all take place in the June meeting.
Spring, are you thinking early spring? Because, I mean, you have to, if you have any new members, you have to get them up to speed. So you don't want to be in the middle of the thick of it.
So like a March or something like that. Does that seem?
Like the March 1 or April 1. And if you're gonna advertise, get applications.
How long did it take you to put it all together
Not
last time?
that long. You know, I can't remember what the turnaround time we had on the,
It's probably one
you know,
meeting
we
to
put
the next.
the notice
probably.
out on the paper, you know, I can't remember how long we gave people to, we could look back at that.
Really bad. It wasn't a long time.
Yeah, we got
We-
applications, we met, we do, and then we made a decision.
So if they complete their work in January, potentially advertise in February and.
Maybe April 1, if April 1 work. Might give
Is
a-
April
because,
1
you know,
too late,
December is
think, or-
always a challenging time to try to get people to focus on.
Sarah, Matt, how do you guys feel about April 1?
I'm not clear, are you planning to solicit all new, no, you didn't, how are we doing this? I mean, what you're talking about is just the process, but we have 5 people who indicated they all want to continue. So are we talking about like starting over or continuing their term or what? I'm not clear.
I think we're talking about when
I don't
terms should go
know.
from when to
When
when.
the term should go, but if they're already on there, so all you're trying to do is say, okay, your term is going from 2 years to 4 years, you don't actually have to do all this process.
No,
If
but
you're talking about saying, okay, 3 of you will continue, then you're talking about taking 5 people and how you're deciding on those 3, or are they gonna voluntarily, you know, that's why I think it's easier just to add 2 people than, and if you're talking
But
about
that doesn't give you a
continuing
true
the same
staggered
5.
term, I mean, having 5 and 2 isn't.
No, it's not a true staggered term, but I'm not sure what you're proposing, what's the alternative, unless you like to almost start over. What?
I'm just,
You're just talking,
sort of
I'm
okay.
just trying to
trying to
decide.
come up with a way of.
Yeah, we started
resolving
it in December, because that's just when we got to it in our
Right.
agenda, but that was not necessarily the most ideal time. It sounds like it's actually
Switch it to
a
April
difficult
1,
time.
it's fine.
Okay, switch it to April,
Right now, it's a
have
2-year
2
term.
staggered terms, yeah.
If you
So
change it to a
anyone-
4-year term. How does that?
So my
I don't
thought
see an
again
end
is
to
that we toss it back to them, toss it to Lorene and them. Wouldn't surprise me if maybe 2 of them or 3 of them say, hey, no, maybe it is time for new blood. I mean, in other words, maybe it could happen a little more organically rather than a top-down direction from the board. Maybe we could hear what the committee thinks the best way to initiate the stagger is. Maybe they have the best sense of timing, et cetera. That was my thought.
I still think it wouldn't hurt to allow 7 people to participate, and that would, you know, that you could throw that back to them too. Do you guys feel like, you know, she could ask them, do you feel like it's productive enough with 5, and you want to keep it at that, or do you want to try having 7? And if, you know, because it really is, you know, significant difference if you're going to take 5 people who are happy working on this committee and want to continue, and then if you're going to say, well, we want to stagger you, then how are they going to decide who's going to drop off? Maybe a couple of them will say, oh, well, actually, I'll drop off. But otherwise, I don't see any reason why you don't just add a couple people. Because, I mean, this is about our budget, our parcel tax, and it doesn't hurt to have more people informed on it. That's really what they're doing, is getting more informed. And,
Again, going back to what Matt said, maybe we do kind of see what the committee, just pull the committee about what they do. I mean, you know, you could do, hey, we're doing 4-year terms and then we'll have multiple people. You could do that. I mean, and then it's more of a learning curve for everybody.
Well, we was aware that they were only on for 2 years, but offered out their services to stay on. So I don't think anybody would be upset in not continuing on, but they felt that they would throw it out there that it's continuity.
no, I think
Would
it's
be
really,
willing to stay on it.
I think it is really important to have continuity, and if 2 or 3 of them stay on there at a minimum, that's great. If all 5 stay on and decide that only can be 5, then you have no new blood, then I think that's sort of unfortunate myself, because I think it is good, it's kind of healthy to get at least 1 new person on a committee like that, and I also think it's healthy for people to understand our budget and our parcel tax better. And I don't see any reason why not to have it change from 5 to 7 unless you got a couple people who want to drop off, and then you just recruit a couple people more. But the other thing I want to say is I don't think that our bylaws really need to change much. I mean, well, as you said, if you change it to 4-year term, fine, but right now it says 2-year staggered. No, it says 2-year term. So what is it you think needed to change?
Well, there's no succession plan,
Right.
and there's no timing of when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
that's why we got to,
in terms of the term.
that's why we got to where we are today, where we have used our 2 years of people, and we don't have new people on there because we
Right, it's almost like it should have been like, oh, 4-year term for 3 and a 2-year term for 2, and then.
But that's not the way we
and then
started,
you could
so.
Make it a 4-year for everybody.
So that's why I think our bylaws are not quite adequate right now, because there's no,
We don't force that to happen.
well, it doesn't set up a process for that to happen.
Right. Well, I think it's a good idea to throw it back to Lorene and the committee, and then if they decide, you know, that they could come back to us with a recommendation of what works for their committee, and then we could modify the bylaws if needed.
You know, I think ideally we put it to them, but in a way that's sort of suggesting that, you know, we would like to create a staggered term sort of system so that we do get that continuity of leadership and knowledge on the committee. And a way to do that would be if, you know, 3 are interested in continuing and 2 are willing to not, and, you know, they would be willing to sort of make that decision amongst themselves, and we could have 3 continue on, put it out, you know, for an advertisement for the remaining 2, and then we could fix up the bylaws to kind of reflect that, and then get everybody on a staggered 4-year term. So the term would be 4 years, and it would be staggered with 2 starting, I guess, in April, with the new term. I mean, it's sort of weird because we're past really the 2-year term right now
Well,
anyway.
Yes,
Well,
you're saying that you're anticipating that we would have a formal selection process at the end of every 2-year term, or whatever, 4-year term, and decide whether to allow them to continue or find new people.
Right, and that's again, that's something else that the current bylaws don't address.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that I believe these are pretty much exactly the same bylaws that Aquilums has. The Aquilums.
Created them,
Yeah,
and I know where they came from.
yeah, and I'm on the Parcel text, and they never do all this. I mean, they just allow whoever wants to go off, and whatever number of people have gone off, then they recruit for new people.
Well, and that's what the vacancy provisions in there allow for, so you could do it that way. It just doesn't set into place a formal
Process.
staggered term. So is it better to just let people continue, or is it better to try to have people, you know, as you were pointing out, more, you know, more members of the public have an ability to try to get on?
Well, again, I think, so we're gonna push it back to the committee, but I think we'll hear from the committee, which is what they told us the last 2 years, or the 2 years of the report, that they recommended that there be a staggered thing. So I assume that's what they're gonna tell us about. Is there any comments from the public on the site?
Just a quick one, Charles, OEA president. When OEA was considering staggered terms, we put it before those effective, and they came up with something that was workable. And I think that Matt's suggestion was a good one. It worked for us, and nobody felt slighted. They didn't feel like someone's telling them, well, you're going to be the first to be off and have a shorter term than the rest. So I trust that they can do that.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, so this item's on for discussion, but so Lorraine, if you could gather some more information, some input from the current committee on what they think might be the best process as far as number of members and timing and staggering. That would be great. So next is discussion item C, Board Policy Administrative Regulation 7214, GO bonds.
So in the board packet for first reading is Board Policy 7114, General Obligation Bonds. It's presented with some suggested modifications to reflect the new laws that have passed, AB 97, AB 182, and SB 581. The laws require greater transparency for the use of capital appreciation bonds and other bonds that allow for compounding interest. They require performance and financial audits be submitted to a Citizens Oversight Committee, and that the results be submitted to the Oversight Committee at the same time they're submitted to the district, and they require the board to respond to all findings, recommendations, and concerns within 3 months of receiving the audits. The administrative regulation is also attached, and it's being updated as well, which has some language that's been removed, which reference some of the old regulations that were replaced by AB 97. At this time, the OUSD doesn't have any proceeds from a bond sale, so these policies don't apply to us directly right now. But should a bond pass within a district, these are our board policies. It's being presented for first reading tonight with a second and final reading at the next board meeting in August. In the policies, the underlined areas are being added and the crossed out sections are being suggested for deletion. And these are the recommendations by CSBA on these policies.
Thank you. Any questions from the board on these policies and regulations?
This is because the first write-up says this is supposed to create greater transparency because of cap bonds. We don't have, I mean, I think of cap bonds as mostly in Southern California, right? Is there that many cap bonds around here, or?
There's language on board page 369 that talks about resolutions, that when the board has to pass a resolution when they direct the issuance and the sale of the bonds, and the resolution has to include, there's a number of items underneath that section that identify the type of sale and type of bonds. And so this is part of the transparency piece, is that if any district is going to engage in that type of issuance, then it needs to be identified and announced in the public session. So it has to be clearly defined from this point forward.
Okay. And then I noticed that there's there's also the AR. Is this all one? It's all one item, right?
Right, the board policy and the administrative regulation are both being presented.
Okay. Is there anything in that AR that we should especially pay attention to, or is it pretty straightforward?
The AR is pretty straightforward. There's just some deletion of language because of the passage of the, let me go back to AB 97. So there's some language that's being crossed off that is no longer pertinent.
And I see, speaking of oversight committee, here's where it says you have to have a 7-member committee for bond oversight.
Right.
Any comments from the public on this item?
I got one more question for Lorraine. On page 273 here, where it's talking about citizens oversight, it mentions if it's approved under the 55% majority threshold pursuant to Prop 39, then the board shall appoint. Does that imply that if you don't, well, mostly it's always 55%, who's going to go after a bond?
There's two different types of bonds, the 2/3 and the 55. And that's why there's different language in here referencing the regulations for each type of bond.
So if you go after a 2/3 vote bond, you don't have to have an oversight committee? Is that what it implies, or am I misunderstanding?
No, that's the language looked like it meant.
What's that?
I
Yeah?
think that's true.
Oh, that's crazy. And then, but it says pursuant to Prop 39, that's the energy one. What does that have to do with it? And Article 16, then the board shall. Oh, well. It looks fine.
This item is on discussion only, and we'll see it again another meeting.
Oh, this isn't for action, that's right. So we'll come back in the fall for action.
In August.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and then we have an information item, board member expense report that was coming out of that grand jury recommendation from a few years ago. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay. So now's the time for board reports. Any board members that have a report to give?
Just two things. Number one, briefly, I just want to thank the whole board for being an OIS promotion. I think it's really important. Right up there with school site visits, I just think it is so great as a school board member. It's one of my favorite parts of being a school board member is to see those kids. That's a very precious age, 8th grade, and they're ready for the world. And to hear the speakers speak with such confidence really speaks to the job that all their teachers are doing. Leading up to that point, and especially the Terry Eubanks at OIS on the speech and debate, really gets kids out of their shell and gets them to speak with passion, and it's just very, very impressive. And then to see all those kids across the stage with various stages of smiles and trepidation and excitement as a board member, it's something that I really enjoy every year. So I appreciate the whole board's commitment to being there for that. And I think that's my 5th OIS promotion, and all school board members have been there for all 5 years. And I think it's a great tradition, and it really shows great support by the board. Secondly, it was my first Miramani graduation. I got to see my son walk across the stage, but more importantly, I got to see 300 something kids walk across that stage. And it's interesting for a Thursday OIS promotion and Friday Miramani to kind of juxtapose those two and see 8th graders and then see seniors, see the 13-year-olds and then see the 17, 18-year-olds. And it's quite a moment, quite a seminal moment. And again, it really highlights for me the job that the Orinda Union School District does and that the Auckland Union High School District does. And when I say the district, I mean teachers and classified staff and administrators and every single person, and parents and EFO and boosters and VPA, and just the job that everybody does. To get these kids, our kids have some of the best opportunities out there because of the value that so many people place on public education in Orinda and in our surrounding communities. And it was really a great year to be able to see that in consecutive nights. So I'm just couldn't be happier with the job that OUSD and Aucklandese is doing for our kids.
Thanks, Matt. Any other reports from the board?
Well, I just want to add to what Matt said. I agree the OIS promotion was great, and it's great to see all the kids. And I also just want to say, since my son is in high school, I think there's a great job that's done with articulation that OIS does and Mr. Randall. So I think we're doing a good job in our schools, and of course all the elementary schools too, leading up to that. So thank you, everybody.
Superintendent.
Thank you. Just an update on the move of the district office. We had hoped to be out of here by now and over to the new building, but the elevator inspection we're still waiting on, and it's scheduled, we found out today, for Thursday morning. And if we pass the elevator inspection, then we're going to anticipate moving the next day. So stay tuned, we'll see what happens.
Wow.
And then I think we reported last time that Distinguished School Ceremonies on the 13th, which Kathy Marshall and I represented the 2 school principals who could not make it because it was scheduled on the last day of school. So we went to the ceremony for them to receive theirs. That was Delaware and Gloria. So we congratulate them for their fine work. Congratulations to our staff and all of our administrators and teachers for a successful conclusion to school. And we're gearing up for next year.
Chris, just one more thing, just briefly. I just want to acknowledge that we're losing one of our directors, Brian Inglesby, has done such a great job for our district, and I know that our loss is going to be their gain. But you've been a consummate professional. You've been discreet. You've been an ally and an advocate for parents and kids in this district that sometimes feel like they don't have a voice or an ally and advocate. And I'm just so appreciative of the job you've done. Thank you.
And I'm not leaving, I'm just working beside.
Okay, and then future agenda items, we still have school discipline policy, online agenda, OPEB, and governance handbook on future agenda items.
I think we should also have on there the facilities priority list.
That was in the board update, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
we're working
getting
on
Yeah.
it.
Right,
But yes,
there was a mention of it in the board update, but I'd like to see it back on our agenda so we can all discuss it together.
I didn't hear them on, sorry, is OPEB, anything else?
it's the same ones that are in the, except the governance handbook got dropped off. So those 3, and then governance handbook.
And then
They were
also,
the minutes from last meeting.
also the subs Speak Up and Be Safe should come back in the fall for the curriculum changes. We could put that on for the fall at some point.
move we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. We can make votes.